Did it do anything? Okay, it is recording, even though it didn't make the announcement. So welcome everyone to the July meeting of ANC3C's Planning, Zoning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee meeting. So this evening on the agenda, we only have discussing future agenda items and all other business unless somebody has something else specific they want to address during this committee meeting, where we make no decisions, by the way.
Oh, everyone, it's Hawk Snipes here, and honey,
It's me turning my volume off.
Oh, I thought Ike was trying to speak to us.
You know, he's been out for his walk. He's passed out now.
Good, excellent.
Me shutting down all the work phone stuff and accidentally hitting volume.
So anyways, so does anyone have anything, like any presentations or agencies or like larger discussion topics we want to bring up in our future meetings outside of applications that we get for things like BZA and what have you? And we get those as they come into us, obviously.
I mean, the only thing that I would add later, and I don't know whether it's entirely germane to this committee or environment, but you know, with thanks to all the work that Tammy has done on the sidewalk, the promenade, but it would be, you know, good in this coming year that the committee continues to look at that and figure out how we can marshal more resources to add greenery and furniture and, you know, otherwise kind of reduce the heat island effect. Maybe that will come in time, but you know, various people, including volunteers, have been doing, you know, working mightily on it, but it would be great to get some city funds.
Yeah, it's been really fun to watch the trees start blooming and growing. Like you can see the future. Just to update folks on that, there's one tree that didn't grow in front of Fat Pete's. So like people email me about that. And the answer to that is that DDOT knows about it. It's under you know, replacement contract, but it's not planting time right now. So it's chilling and it's like dirt. And I've asked whether it can get removed until they plant it. And I don't know. I don't have an answer for that yet. But in general, it will be planted probably more towards the fall and replanted. And then also for those, if everybody didn't already see, the Public Spaces Committee June meeting approved 6 patios for Cleveland Park by consent, so which is cool. So I don't know if anybody else has more intel than I do. I'm still trying to figure out, like, okay, does that mean they can put them out now? And they're looking for a little bit of guidance. So I have a bunch of asks in, but that should start populating soon. And the other question I get a lot, in case you do as well, is what about Nanny O'Brien's? Nanny O'Brien's didn't file their paperwork on time, but they should be slated for the July meeting. So just a month behind. And then Rick, to your point, Cassandra and Cleveland Park Main Street. I think we were just talking about trying to figure that out, but they also want to be a little proactive on thinking through what that might look like from funds they can go after as well. So I think like it's a great topic for future committee meetings, because we've talked about things like the sort of sale coverage or like patio lights or like what that looks like from a holiday perspective. So I think just like more planning around that kind of stuff would be cool.
Sure. You know, and funds directly, you know, from the city. I mean, one example is the Connecticut Avenue, you know, I forget whether the design guidelines, but basically for the streetscape, you know, on the west side of Connecticut, contemplate a double row of trees because the sidewalk is so wide, and this wasn't contemplated in the east side because it was designed to be, you know, shared space with vehicles and pedestrians. But now that it's been
also the metro.
Yeah, but now that it's been closed, you know, it would be good to have DDOT and the planners go back and say, okay, well, how can we replicate what we're trying to do on the west side there to provide more shade?
Yeah.
unfortunately, the design guidelines kind of say, hey, we, the government, aren't going to do this. This is for the private sector to take care of.
Well, the public sector probably wouldn't want the private sector jackhammering tree holes.
I'm just saying it was pretty clear. It was clear to me, at least, in the guidelines that OP wasn't saying, "Hey, we're going to beautify all of this."
Right. No, I'm not talking about the OP Connecticut Avenue Development Guidelines.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This goes back to the Connecticut Avenue streetscape design.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Guidelines. No problem. But
I've got you, Rick. Yeah.
They've been weirdly flexible.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that's great.
Look, funds are tight, but they've obviously found, funds to do the conversion this year. So, phase 2 or phase 3 ought to be to, make it a bit more friendly to pedestrians with shade and so forth. So, anyway, that's
Tammy, are these restaurants who got the public space permits also have alcohol licenses to serve?
They're not all done yet, but they're filed. Yeah.
Okay.
Which, newbie ANC over here, I was unaware. And I gather so was Cassandra that they.
Yeah, I had told her months ago about this, and so I don't know.
I have no idea, but like clearly they should have all known and filed at the same time concurrently, but I did not know that. So anyway, long story short, they're in, they know. We'll see. I mean, some of them don't really, like Fresh Med doesn't matter. Like they don't need to be selling alcohol necessarily to put them out there. So I think some of them will move before that, but like George and the folks at Sababa and Little Blackbird have just said, tell me like when I can put them out. So I think folks are ready to go when they get the nod from DDOT.
And I know none of them, to my knowledge, have applied for enclosed sidewalk cafes. So these are all unenclosed, but they probably involve like umbrellas or some sort of shading device that's just not part of the structure of the building. So I think that will help with this heat island effect. And also like it takes time for these trees to grow. There was no way that they could have put in fully grown trees. Gravity is hard.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah.
And I think some people expected that, and that's a totally unreasonable expectation. Just physics. And again, gravity is something we're fighting against here. And then the other thing is like, there's a lot of infrastructure over there that, these tree roots are going to have to go in up against. But we were able to get the tree gators on them so that they're able to, during the watering season, which is summer, be able to maintain that water. There's a little bit of an environmental debate about whether or not those are great because they're plastic. But because they are in a prominent location where we're going to be able to see them when they start to decay and then like be able to remove them when we can, it's a little bit more somewhat more forgiving environmentally. It's just like, when they're putting them on trees, like in the middle of where nobody ever goes, then they tend to be ruinous. Also, there's a cool tree watering map that DDOT Urban Forestry has that we're going to include. We're sending out a community update newsletter this evening, and we're including this link in it so that folks in the neighborhood, along with an update on the promenades, sidewalk cafe permits and all of that, and encourage people to water the tree. So you can click on the tree and see like its condition and everything. Cool. So yeah, Kathy, you've had your hand up for a little bit. So if you want to go ahead.
Okay, since I'm the non-member here, I'll just try to make it kind of snappy, but there's a couple of thoughts that I had, and some of these things may have absolutely nothing to do with what the committee sees as its role, which is like fine with me. So I just raise them and dismiss them, whatever you want. you know, one is, there's been, at least a few letters, I think, well, one that I know about, you know, and was part of drafting and such, to the to DHCD, and the topic is the rent stabilization reset letter for what is the new maximum rent. It's sent out annually, and the way that the letter is worded, it looks like this is your new rent, where, you know, the Office of the Tenant Advocate and everyone else agrees that per the legislation, or rather the statute that's behind it, you know, the amount is simply a maximum, and, you know, subject to negotiation between tenant and landlord like any other, you know, rent. And so the, you know, the idea has been, you know, to, you know, write a letter to DHCD and say, you know, we really support revision to, you know, to the annual letters that go out, so that it's clear to tenants that this is not a mandatory, you know, level. And it, you know, I didn't, you know, since I didn't send anything before, and we were just at the chatting stage, you know, I haven't sent, you know, the statute or the you know, the letter itself, and you know, haven't you know, quoted or cited what you know, Joel and others at OTA have said, but they are supportive of something like this. It's the kind of thing that, you know, we could write a letter along the lines of the one that was done on you know, Adam's letter actually from last time on you know, pets and fees and so forth. It's the same kind of thing. So it would just be for your consideration. But you tell me, you know, if this is something that, you know, think about it, you know, get back to me if this is something that the committee would be interested in. I can send you materials if it is stuff that you think is outside the way we view the parameters of this committee. That's fine too. So that was one thing, the rent stabilization form and clarification to it. The other is
Oh, Kathy, I
I-
totally think that's in the purview of this. So yes, definitely send it over to us and we'll have
okay.
it.
Yeah, and have a look, and people can decide, you know, whether this is what they would like to do. If it's not going too far, I would send you a kind of draft of what it is that we might be able to see, you know, using the letters that we've done before as kind of a base. But if you don't want to go to that point and you want to just say, let's just look at the background materials, that's just fine too.
Do both, send it all over and we'll have a look.
Send
Thank you
send
for
whatever.
offering.
Okay, that's good. That's an answer on that. The
Well, I mean, the
next
committee
thing,
does have housing in its remit, so, you know, I fully.
yeah, yeah. So so another thing is, you know, certainly people are curious about what is going on in the neighborhood with, you know, what's the status of the Macklin. There was, you know, there were, you know, folks on the Cleveland Park listserv, which I have to say I don't read all the time, but they sent something out, you know, to the effect that there's going to be a tax sale, and that the tax sale will include the Macklin new, you know, construction. And you know, that it has stopped because of financial reasons, and that taxes are unpaid, and there will be a sale. Now, you know, I sent something to one of the other members of this little organization, one of the other commissioners, who came back and said, you know, it's not so clear that this is exactly where they are. But there's that raises some community questions, you know. Also, there's you know, rumors around, you know, that come from some of the, you know, local you know, commercial store owner, at least one, about the Uptown, and, you know, plans for what will happen to the Uptown and, you know, the entire building. And I don't know whether it is something that the committee would like to be doing to update people on, well, geez, what's going on with the Macklin? What's as much as we know? What's going on with the Uptown? What is known that can be shared? And then I guess Buffalo and Bergen is another one where, you know, there's just time keeps going on and on and on. And the final thing that I have is Tammy mentioned, patios.
Yep.
And I don't know whether patios is like the new name for the eateries or what that is, or
I mean, it's
then
all
what's
semantics, but it's not, it's not. I'm using that term because I just look at them and think it's a patio.
Well,
okay.
there's two
But is
different
that the
things
same?
now.
Do you mean it the same as the eateries?
I'm not
No.
trying to like be DC governmenty when I say patios. I'm just like talking like a human.
Yeah.
Streeteries, I think Janelle probably can tell you the
Yeah.
legalities of what those
Streeteries, yeah,
are,
yeah.
but yeah, I'm not using it in any sort of terminology way.
This,
But I think people wonder, what in the world is the middle of the summer and, where are the streeteries? And, is there anything that we can do to, highlight the fact that my understanding is that, that the restaurants are interested in opening them, but that the district has not permitted it. And similarly with the new restaurant.
well,
Um,
they did on Thursday. It's a
Yeah.
2-month process, no matter what. So sidewalk cafes are different from streeteries, and the streetery program is done under emergency legislation, and it's currently a year behind revamping that program to have better guidelines and guidance as to like what those can look like. Because what we are doing, what they are doing is taking over public space and using it for a private purpose. So there's certain regulations that include having enough clearance for pedestrian traffic flow, and then also paying rent for the square footage that you're taking up in the quote unquote right of way, right? So I know there were some things on the listserv. Nobody should believe most of that about the landlords being able to benefit from having this extra space on the sidewalk in front of the building. That's not the case. The District of Columbia's coffers benefit from it because not only, and the rent paid is not, it's probably as much as you get for parking your car, your private vehicle in the public space for like that amount of time, right? But we're also pulling revenue. The District of Columbia, not me or the ANC, is pulling revenue from the sales of food and beverage in that space now, right? So, and we're making a lot more, the District of Columbia, off of that than we are parking car and maintaining that roadway. So it's just a process that isn't different on this strip of land versus anywhere else in the District of Columbia. It's the Public Space Committee, so they have each restaurant has to do drawings, which is like Nanny's had to go back a few times where, there's I think 28 commenters, including Tammy, who was always on time and approving hers, in this permitting system, whether it be stormwater management, the ADA folks, like it's a whole slew of approvals that you have to get before you get to the committee. And they were supposed to be, all of them were supposed to be on in July. And Tammy worked with the Public Space Committee and got them pushed up to this month, June. So they have them in hand now. But there was, before when it was going to be a shared area, before they were just like, we're closing it down permanently to cars, that was going to fall under a streetery program because then it's in the right of way of, or in a parking lane of car. Now, the problem is we couldn't do that on Connecticut Avenue because myriad of things. But they could have done it in the service lane, and that streetery program was so like bleh, and it's actually a little bit more costly and requires those Jersey barriers and like other things that would have just been unsightly to some degree if the space was going to be permanently shut down to cars. And it would have been less space too, because DDOT was looking into it before the permanent shutdown happened. So hopefully that answers, does that answer some?
Yeah, it does. It's just, I think people are puzzled, why did we, at one point, there were people sitting outside and, using that area productively. If you go over to Cathedral Commons, you can see that there are plenty of, I'll just use streetery since that's,
I feel like this issue is going to go away when the patios come out this month. So like,
yeah, I think it sounds like you're right. I don't know what the rest of the city permitting issue is that is so troublesome with like a new restaurant, like
honestly, it's been fine. So I'm not sweating it. All 6 of ours that got their applications in on time got approved a month ahead of time. So I mean, short of not having to go through an application process, which isn't legal, I'm pretty happy with like not only our restaurants and our businesses that got their stuff in, but also the city who moved them up faster. So I think if you're talking to people who are jabberjawing or like, gossiping,
I think what they're saying is
you can help by quashing that and letting them know. Because like I'm
Yeah,
not
it's-
getting that. I mean, this is like my district, and so I presumably would
Yeah.
get an email about it. I'm not getting that, and what I'm getting from people is I'm excited about the restaurant patios. When are they opening? And
They
then
are.
they
Oh,
just got
yeah.
approved. That's great. So stay tuned, which is like what I've put out on social media and like everything
Mhm.
that like, generally like we'll put out in the newsletter and all of those kinds of things. So
Mhm.
I think all of those communications methods are being done, but if you're hearing it from a select group of people or one person, you can be a great advocate by communicating that to them.
Yeah, it's really more, we really would love to see our neighborhood also have, as much, presence, of these institutions in the sidewalks as they do up at Politics and Prose and they do over
Well,
at
it's
Cathedral
been around a
Commons.
lot longer up there. So we've only had it open for a couple of months. So
For like
Yeah.
an hour.
I know,
Yeah.
like, yeah, cool. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, those have been open for decades. So
No,
they're
you're right. I
not
mean,
approved.
if it's getting resolved, then it's just a
Never not
passing
been
issue.
resolved. It's just DC, government in general takes a process. You have to fill out an application. You have to go through an approval committee.
But-
It's not instantaneous.
Yeah.
It was.
I think-
had them
I think
open
Kathy,
in March.
I think Kathy raises, a different point, perhaps, but there was a victory, last month, when you got all the public space permits. That was great, but I didn't know about that.
We're literally sending the newsletter.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think
But
that's so helpful.
Everyone
That's
can,
huge.
everyone can
When
circle
you do
around
things
what
good,
they
let
wish it
people
was
know.
or whatever, but this is the process.
Yeah.
of government.
Thursday and we have jobs.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just a volunteer venture. So, you
Yeah.
try to do the best that you can.
Yeah.
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 Appreciate your help
Just,
getting the word out.
Mhm.
when good things happen, or even if things
It's going out in
good,
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
permanently let people know.
Yeah.
Okay, I
As
didn't mean
opposed
to create a
letting the
controversy,
listserv
I mean, it
jabber
happened
on
a few
forever.
days ago. It's not like we've been
Yeah,
dragging
no,
it.
I know, but this is a more general point.
Yeah.
Listserv will, jabber forever, but
Yeah.
if you all who actually know stuff, let people know.
That's why I let people know. I email my district and all of my condos in my area. I put it on
but-
all my social media channels, which are public. The
Yeah.
newsletter will be going out momentarily.
Okay.
So short of other suggestions, I think we can move on from this
The
one.
listserv, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not really interested
Okay,
in.
one
Do it.
other thing that I was thinking about, and again, whether this is something that could happen at the committee level or has to go to the, the entire, ANC3C group. I do wonder whether it would be a nice thing to have one of the Office of Planning people talk to us and there are a few topics, but you guys know I'm interested in housing, and the Office of Planning officially had told us that the mayor had not, and this was several years ago now, that the mayor had not abandoned her plans for several thousand affordable housing units in our ward, that Connecticut Avenue was, the area that they're looking at, and that what they had changed about in the announcement that was made a few years ago was that the plan was that what would be utilized would be existing structures, in other words, existing multifamily buildings. And I don't know whether the Office of Planning is still in that mode. If so, what the mechanism is by which they would exercise, any powers the city has to do that. But I think that housing would be one aspect of what the Office of Planning is involved in. And I should think that there are others of interest to the different other committees and such. So it's just a suggestion.
Yeah, Bob Ward had brought up bringing in the Office of Planning to speak more to the upcoming comprehensive plan,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because the Office of Planning doesn't do housing as such, but the comprehensive plan and future land use map changes would afford the opportunity to make the subsequent
Mhm.
changes in zoning. Now, after what has been occurring with 1617 U Street and the Chevy Chase
Yes.
project, I'd be curious to know what the executive and the Office of Planning's appetite is with approaching those changes in zoning before there's an actual project, due to what, in my opinion, is like people don't understand that there's not a project there yet, right?
Mhm.
It's we're doing the change before the project comes. And I think there's going to be a lot of lessons learned. Actually, I hope there's going to be a lot of lessons learned with how painful that process has been. But I think that's a good idea, Kathy. And I know that something Bob wants, and I'm curious to hear what the others on this committee think too.
They're tied into that OP, I guess, last week or the week before, you put on its website, its equity plan, or whatever all the initials are, and it goes on for many, many pages. And as I don't know what it means that they're going to do as a bottom line. It's got lots of words that I assume a consultant was paid a lot of money to write. But what does this mean in real life for what OP does every day, or how OP actually looks at a specific project? Now, I don't think you're going to get anybody from OP to come up here and give us a real answer to those questions, but it kind of ties in, to the kinds of issues that Kathy was raising and that and that you just mentioned. Yeah, because it's kind of an overlay over everything that OP is supposed to be doing.
Well, we've actually, I think the ANC has also had people speak from DBH and I think maybe DHS. And I don't know that I recall having the housing authority, come and speak to us, but and I don't know, what the appetite is. But you had mentioned, government agencies. I do think that it was interesting, OP at the at this event that I keep referring to that was really now it's 2-3 years ago. They were the ones who brought up their role in all of the housing and how to accommodate the mayor on affordable housing in this area. So that was why I raised it there. And some of these things are things that spill over into the whole ANC, not just the committee, but just mentioning them to you here.
Yeah, no, totally. We'd like to have more ideas for presentations. I try to copy off of a lot of other commissions when I see or hear from them that they've had good folks from agency come and present at their ANC meetings. The other thing that you're going to see in the newsletter that Adam said just went out now is that ANC3C was invited to join ANC4B and ANC1A at the second annual tenant resource fair that's going to be held at MLK Library on the 12th. And there's a number of panel discussions that are going to be happening. And this is another place where I went to this last year.
Mhm.
And was just really fascinated by and came up with a lot of other ideas of folks that we could bring in potentially. And I think I might have brought some of them in over the past year. But it's hard if I'm the only one ginning up ideas. So that's why I'm really appreciating all y'all having this conversation today. And just making sure like there's an appetite for some of these things and I'm not going out on a limb. So
Mhm.
I'm really, Kathy, thank you so much for bringing a lot. Oh,
So
Adam,
the thing that's on the 12th is called, it's called the Housing Fair.
the Tenant Resource Fair. So it's July
Tenant Resource-
14th from 11 to 2 at the MLK Library because it's incredibly accessible and anyone throughout the city is invited to it.
Come say hi. I'll be there.
I'll be there too.
Janelle will be there too.
Here, I'll put the link in the chat. But yeah, Kathy, you actually were on my list to reach out to specifically about this because I know, there's a lot of people in your building that are probably going to be very interested in this, including yourself, I'm sure. And the rental buildings around me as well. Like, I just know that this is top of mind. So I'm excited that we were asked to join. But yeah, hopefully, can make some connections while I'm there too and get a robust schedule of presenters, whether it be in this committee meeting or at the regular ANC meeting, to close out the rest of this term and year. Today was the first day to pull petitions for re-election, y'all. Or election. Exciting times. All right. Anyone have anything else? Rick, at your public safety committee, you're doing the kind of panel-ish discussion with the business owners and
Right.
MP, right?
That's right. Business owners or managers. Yeah.
Because that kind of like is a little bit of economic development and public safety
It,
overlap.
it is. And, as you know, when you've talked to them yourself, there is that overlap and, in their view, one affects the other. So. And, this will be a good discussion, about a year into when, MPD and other city agencies really began to put more focus around this issue. And, there's been some progress, but in the view of the managers, there's, more to be done and they have some ideas.
Okay. Oh, just circle back, Kathy, and answer the questions about the Macklin and the Uptown. The Uptown's owners are notoriously very quiet and close to the vest with what their intentions are with what's going on with that property. So we can ask as many times as we want. They're
Yeah.
when they're gonna
I have literally never responded to any single question or ask that I've ever had along the way. So it's not for lack of trying to get an update.
Yeah, and there's a lot of confidentiality around real estate transactions, leases, terms of leases, conditions on leases, all of that stuff that we're either not privy to or that we need to keep confidential as well. I will say that I know nothing about the Uptown other than it's there and empty.
No,
as far as
I only know gossip, but I don't know.
wish I
anything
had better
different.
information. but
Certainly nothing from the owners.
Their position is they communicated it to, particularly another party that had a, made an offer for an arts venue is that they had agreed in principle on an LOI with another tenant. And when, there've been follow-up, it's been that they're in process of negotiating that. That said,
And over a year.
it's a very long time, really 16 months it'd be a very long time to negotiate a commercial lease of that type, and certainly for an LOI.
Yeah.
And then regarding the Macklin, when we did reach out to the developer, he said, and we can only go off of what he says. And he said that it was a financial reset and that they were changing the general contractor because of delays in the project schedule of over a year. And while that's not ideal in a project, it is not totally unheard of. And the tax lien sale, that is selling the debt to somebody else that who can then recoup interest on the debt. It's not selling the property for $20,000. That would be a wild way of, and we already in the United States have a wild way of doing real estate, but that would be an exceptionally wild one.
Okay, so somebody else is just assuming the tax debt and charging for it. That's all there is to that.
Well, and if anybody buys it, then they have a right to go to court and to foreclose.
But there's a period of
Yeah, no, I'm not saying anything bad's gonna happen the next day. They have to wait 30 days or 60 days before they can go to court, and then we all know that court isn't fast ever. So it's a start of a process that could end up in the property being sold, or it could end up with no change at all, so.
Yeah, I think we need to know more details about it. And, certainly in the District of Columbia, tax sales can mean that the entire, asset, which is the subject of the Real Estate Act taxes, gets sold. And, I don't know how the developer has organized this project, whether it's in LLCs, but if it's restructuring and, goes through a formal restructuring, process, and there's a sale that will, have its own layer of complications too. So, I think we just have to stay tuned for more details, and hopefully they'll be forthcoming soon.
We have a commercial strip in the property in Woodley Park that is on the tax sale list as well. And yeah, who knows? And in theory, that was supposed to be taken over by a nonprofit, but whoever is supposed to have paid the taxes obviously hasn't. So we'll keep watching.
That's it. That's really interesting. I mean, who is the nonprofit? Do you know?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Woodley House. They were supposed to be, some other nonprofit was supposed to be buying it, and you're letting Woodley House use it, is at least my understanding from years ago. And whether, I'm sure that's changed many times since then, but that's the way we were told about it then.
I mean, yeah, so we don't really want to like have meetings with speculation on things until we have the facts. So we communicated when people asked what we were told by who we were told, or if we were told nothing, that we were told nothing. But yeah, that is just, we know the guardrails and the things that are involved. And at the end of the day, the District of Columbia wants to be made whole. The banks that have the loans out on construction want to be made whole. So it's not like the property is just going to be foreclosed on and like left, right? Because that nobody's going to be made whole at the end of the day on that. So it's just kind of a wait and see to reorganize finances and construction loans and all of this, or whatever's going on with it's so others might eat in Woodley House and the property down in Woodley Park. But I mean, the list of these properties is what, 7 pages long?
Yeah, it's long, yeah.
So it's not like these are the only 2 properties in the District of Columbia that are you know, facing this. So there's that.
Any further on the Wardman, by the way? Since
The limited scope continuation hearing, is it a hearing or is it just, it doesn't matter. It's on July 3rd. So yeah, there was a little bit
Do you
of,
want me to know? Do you want me,
Go
or
ahead,
you
yeah.
can go? So,
I'm done about the Wardman right now.
there was a kerfuffle because the attorneys for the Wardman Hotel Strategy Team. So at the end of the original hearing, the chair asked for closing statements. The attorneys for the Wardman Hotel Strategy Team filed a rebuttal in closing statements, which then the Carmel attorneys filed to reopen the record to strike the rebuttal part. But rather than doing that, the chair of BZA reopened the record to the ANC, to Carmel, and to DOB to rebut the rebuttal from the Wardman Hotel Strategy Team. The ANC didn't take a formal position because it was in between 2 meetings, and in my personal opinion, as the commissioner, I think we've said all that we have to say, and I've personally have nothing else to say to that, in my opinion, frivolous appeal. DOB basically said the same thing. We have nothing else to say. It should be denied, and they should be allowed to continue to build. And Carmel's attorneys obviously said the same thing. So that will be decided hopefully on July 3rd, and we can finally get this building open.
Woohoo.
And I can stop hearing the hammering and the jackhammering and the banging all day.
For real. Let's get these things done.
But is it topped
thank you
out
for
now?
that.
Or it's pretty close to being topped out?
Yes. So the from what I gathered, the Calvert Street side is should be topped out in October. Like not topped out, but like fully moving construction indoors.
Enclosed, yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
in October. And then the Woodley Roadside not far after that.
Mhm.
They have windows now. I saw windows today and I was like, wow, we're really moving along here.
Progress.
But it's as tall as it's gonna be, right?
I think the Calvert Street side is no, I think it's got 1 story left because there's
Okay.
only 6 stories built so far. I forgot how tall it's supposed to be.
I would
I
have
think I
thought
remember
9.
that. I'm sorry, what, John?
I would have thought 9.
Yeah, I think 9. So it's got a few floors left.
Okay.
I just don't remember the floor count off the top of my head.
I mean, it blends in. I can barely see it when the bus drives by it. So it's pretty impressive how it's tucked away there and it's very big. Yeah. Oh, the other thing to mention in this committee, because Adam, you just reminded me, the Woodley Park, what kind of market is that?
Sorry. So Woodley Park Main Streets is going to be doing weekly markets along the Calvert Street corridor. Starting, I believe they're targeting a start date at the end of July. But that's subject to Robert getting the correct permits and stuff. It will be on Sunday from 10 or 11, I'm sorry, to 4. From the Chipotle to where the Afghan Grill was. And it will be similar to the Cleveland Park Farmers Market, but not really. It's run by the people who do the the market in Union Station on Saturdays, which is why it's on Sundays. And he's also going to reach out to the zero waste people to have the composting bins come to Woodley Park.
Mhm.
So it's gonna have like fresh produce and stuff that
It will have like fresh produce. So when he told me about it, it was like stuff that will not compete with businesses that are in Woodley Park. So I mean,
Manhattan
produce.
Market doesn't have fresh.
Well, we have a farm market every Saturday at Murray. So we don't want a Sunday market to be selling zucchinis off the vine, in competition. That market.
I don't know if it's like I got the feeling from Robert it will have like a farmer's stand, but it's mostly an arts and crafts type market. But I'll double check with him.
And I'll talk to he and I have talked about this in the past because the market that we have has been coming to to Woodley Park for 40 years, and we support it, and it's here every Saturday morning all year round, even on the coldest days. So I don't want to undercut what they've been doing for all these years.
I don't know that you're undercutting. I think you're adding too.
I don't know. It depends upon what they're doing. Yeah.
Like, what if you have your kids' soccer games every Saturday morning and you want to do something on Sunday when you're
No, that's
Right.
fine. As I said, I don't know.
I like
always understood.
Yeah,
I do
was
think
not
it's
gonna be a
primarily arts and
farmer's
crafts.
market. It was going to be some other kind of market.
Yeah. I do think it's primarily arts and crafts, but I
That's what I thought.
but we did talk about, because I saw the zero waste people at the DuPont Circle Farmers Market this weekend, and I thought it was very cool because they had I want to say 20 different composting bins, and people were just coming and dropping stuff off. It was really for the DC government, oddly efficiently run. And it looked, people just came, dropped it off, and I think they were getting something in back. I didn't fully get to investigate what they were getting in return. I think it was like a sticker or something.
Oh no, they have bags now of the compost, the dirt.
Oh, maybe that's what they were getting.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they had 20 bins. People were coming, they would fill them up, and then they would load them on a truck and take them out. They were also oddly sharing the tent with the cabbie bike people, which I thought was very kind of a weird marriage, but
Yeah. I feel like that Venn diagram's a circle of people who who compost and use cabbie bike a lot. So checks out. Well, that's cool. So we're putting a letter together in support of that after you get a little bit more information, right, Adam?
Yeah, so it's technically a majority in Commissioner Geis's SMD. Robert had just emailed it to me, so I talked to her today. And we will be hopefully offering a letter in July, just because he would like to get it. We are offering a letter, not in support of the use of the sidewalk and things like that. Not obviously what comes and what goes, but hopefully in July. I know he wants to get it rolling in July.
Okay, cool. And then at the July 15th meeting, Tammy's going to be offering a letter supporting not a grant from the ANC, but a grant from Arts and Humanities.
An application for grants for Arts and Humanities.
For more murals in Cleveland Park on the side of the 7-Eleven that faces Ordway Street. So whatever it is, Tammy will have to look at it the most.
Yep.
And then the electrical boxes on the promenade. And hopefully maybe like the little rat holes that I keep trying to get abated under one of them.
311 app, your friend every single time.
I have so many 311 requests in on that one electrical box. It's like not even funny. I feel like I might live underneath it soon with
Got the
the rats.
Bay Street 311 zone defense going.
And I'm going to rat camp next week, next Wednesday and Thursday.
Rat camp? How did
Yeah.
I not get invited to this?
You were, you probably just missed the email.
I probably just missed the email.
It's
Class.
Rodent and Vector Control Academy
Whoa.
at George Washington University from 8:30 to 5. Lunch is not provided or included. So yeah, a bunch of, I mean, I think it went out to all the ANCs. Tammy, I can forward it to you if you want to still sign up.
I don't know if I can, but I'll go find it.
Sure.
It is
I'm-
obsessed, so if I can make it, I will.
Okay, let me forward it to you because I just found it again today.
Funny.
All about rodent and vector control.
If I can go to that, it will make all of this ANC stuff worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. If anybody thinks I'm not committed to this gig, wait till I tell you all about rat camp. What's Rick? Go ahead.
No, I salute your commitment. This question isn't on rat camp, as important as it is, but on the mural question, and that is if there's a grant for a mural from the city, so how is the sort of mural decided? And
This is Claire Sharp, who's the artist who lives on Macomb Street, is applying for the grant.
Okay, and so then she works with the property owner.
Yes, but also my understanding is she'll be like bringing some preliminary designs to the ANC meeting, like all these kinds of things ahead.
Okay.
This is a fairly new request, but the hearing with the grants committee is coming up in late July, so we need to do it at our next meeting.
Okay. So, so will she be making a presentation then on what her concept?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I haven't seen it yet, but she'll present why she's there.
Thanks.
But she did the mural above Spices, and like if you want to look at like her portfolio, it's Claire Sharp Art on Instagram and web.
Right. I just asked the question because there are murals in other parts of the city, and I don't know whether that is, more of a community-led process or of a public process. I'm just
like something to investigate in your free time.
Or can just anybody apply? So
yeah, I think anybody can apply for a grant, any artist, but where it goes is a different story. So
yeah, and the ANC support is like required for the grant from the other agency that's not us. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I just requested right before this meeting started that if it was possible to provide the like drawings or whatever they're going to present when we notice the meeting next Monday, that would be super helpful, but not required, but something obviously we've been liking to do is include as much material with our notice as possible. But artists are gonna artists, and I know some of them are working at the meeting and not making a deadline before. So
Yeah.
Pressure Claire.
But I think it's gonna be cool to get some art on those green hideous boxes.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they can be some flowers so it looks like there's more flowers there.
It does a lot of flower stuff, so
Cool.
I wouldn't be shocked if that's involved.
Great. All right, anybody have anything else? Because in 5 minutes we start our historic, what is it, whatever the next one is on residential houses. But I think there are a lot of good ideas that came out of here, and I really appreciate everyone's time and inputs on this. Yeah. And read the newsletter and let us like hear feedback on.
The newsletter went out during this meeting. I
know,
apologize that it
I
didn't go
wanna
out sooner.
I want to hear what folks think, if they like this information, if we did a good job with it, because this is only like our second one, like kind of doing this kind of stuff. Because it's mainly just like a whole list of our committee meetings, and sorry
Mhm.
about that too. But yeah, it would be great, you know, to get some inputs and ideas on it. Not that you guys haven't contributed enough already, which I again really appreciate, and thank you all.
Great,
Cool.
super. Well, thank you.
All right. Everyone, enjoy the rest.
Thank you.
I'll
Bye.
see some of you
Thanks,
in
everybody.
3 minutes. Bye-bye.